Hello and welcome to our next guide on our Judiciar dude. Last time we left off with the leathers. I did a few changes off camera. What I did was I pushed the highlights a little bit more on the folds here. I also did do a few glazes of full red onto the glove and re-establish the highlights a little bit because it was a bit too pinkish. And overall cleaned up the leathers. I also did do a bit of a change to the non-metallic, which I want to share with you guys. You may or may not have liked how the non-metallic looked in the first iteration of it. And it was cool. It was cool. I liked it. But I felt like it was a bit too blue. Now, there is nothing wrong with it being a bit too blue if you like it that way. It's a bit more sci-fi, a bit more fantasy-like. I wanted to go for a more realistic non-metallic black, so I did sort of change the mid-tone of the non-metallic to a more grayish tone. Simply said, you could do, if you want to get to this result, all you have to do is just add less blue to your initial mix. Just that. Just a bit more black and white and a bit less black and blue. If you want to change it midway, like I did, all you have to do is just mix a tone that is similar in value to the mid-tone you had, just with less blue in it, and kind of glaze it in a little bit, stipple and layer it, and change the mid-tone that way. So we are ready to go and do our golds now and our blade. Let's start from the blade, mostly because I'm excited to paint it. I think it's cool. So I have changed my palette because the other one, the paint was behaving weird on it. I didn't like it. I don't know what's happening, but felt like it was good to change. I'm gonna get let's try something else. Light green blue from Vallejo. It's a bright color. We can use it to get our gray. It has a bit of a verdigris tone to it. I mean, it is a verdigris. So we can use this for our highlighting. Although I probably need to shake this color a lot more because I haven't used it in years. I think I bought it when I started painting and never actually used it. This is the first time, dude. So I'm gonna have it sit on our vortex mixer a few more seconds just to get the full shakiness. Yeah, I don't even have a ball inside. I have put balls inside all of my paints. So the fact that this one doesn't, it means that I never used it before. Okay, should be good now, I hope. Yeah, it's a bit more thick. That one was very fluid, the first drop. All right, so let's mix ourselves a grayish tone. Also, this palette I have now, I can't just load the brush from the palette like I did with the other one. I have to actually add some water to it, so let me do it. Okay. Okay, we're good. All right, so I'm gonna get myself a bit of a dark gray, and we're going to base coat our blade with this color. Okay, I'm trying to avoid the recesses so that I don't have to redo them. Let me zoom out a bit. Let me put the model in focus. Okay, sorry. Should be in focus now. Yeah, okay. When you're painting something like this that has a lot of indentations in it, all you have to do is just use the side of the brush with little paint on it. And most of the paint will not land in the recesses. Some of it will, but at least it's not all of it, right? can always clean up with a quick wash of black. But this is so much faster than just, being careful and painting every little edge. I mean, I'm gonna have to do it anyway because I have to edge light them, but at least in the base coat I can skip that stage. Yeah. So we got ourselves a bit of a neutral base coat. I might want to make it darker later, but for now I'm good. So I'm just gonna add a bit more of these verdigris to it, in it, and work in some highlights. Now I want the highlights to be here, and the reason why I want them here is because I can have a very dark shadow at the bottom of the blade for contrast, and I can push the contrast even more by edge highlighting the letters, so I can keep the letter of the bottom side of the blade uh, dark, and then edge highlight them, and that will push the contrast to an insane amount, which is going to direct the view of the viewers towards the face, which is where we want it to be. Okay. Again, the letters are going to be picked out later. I'll be adding a couple of reflected lights. Something like that. And here as well. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna be doing one side with you guys and then paint the other on my own, okay? So that you don't get to waste too much time watching me base coat stuff. Okay, now we blend, so we can go back to adding a bit of black or to the previous mix, whatever you want. And we can work on blending. So I'm gonna be creating a tone that is in between the two tones I just used. And I'm going to place it between them. Carefully, the tone is thinned. I'm not moving the brush randomly. The brush is also loaded with very little paint so that I don't get a big coffee staining effect. And I can just carefully paint in the colors. If you're having issues blending and you find that you're not experienced enough with it so that you get a good blend, I suggest you work up the colors a bit more slowly. What I mean is that rather than using these strong highlights that I placed, use a bit of a darker color so they blend more easily. for example, here, my gray, the blending gray, is good, but the difference between the base coat and the highlight is too high. So even if I create a mid-tone between them, I still don't get enough of a gradient to be able to blend. So what I'm doing is creating microtones. I added a bit more of my highlight color, and now I am blending between the highlight and the the first blend. This requires a lot of precision, unfortunately, but the more you practice it, the easier it will be for you to do it. I'm going to show you the blend without speeding it up or nothing, because I feel like you guys like the metallic a lot. I can see it from my YouTube, well, I mean, from the video editor page. See how many views my pattern videos get, and every time non-metallic is involved, we get a big spike in views. So I know you like non-metallic, and I'm gonna show you. Okay. You can also wet blend if you want, by the way. Like, let me show you. I can get this verdigris placed in here, and before it dries, just go back to the previous color, block it in next to it, and then move the two colors together for a blend. I can go back to the black and blend these color in as well. I'm creating a line, a black line here, because the blade has an edge in its middle, which means we can use that edge to push the contrast, making it look more metallic. When we do edge highlight at the top, it's going to look a lot more metallic thanks to this. Okay. So yeah, I'm just going to keep going. The blending, placing the color down, extending it with a brush. Okay, we can go back to our ink. White ink from Schminke I used in the previous guides. We can push this a bit more. I'm gonna be using pure verdigris, whatever the color was. Wait, it was light green blue. I'm gonna be using pure light green blue just to sketch in some edge lights, some stronger highlights. This is a very white color anyway, so okay. Now we have to pick out the letters. Terminus means the end, by the way. Okay. We get our strong light there. We can expand the highlights up here too. Okay. Okay, you can see we're starting to get that glint of light happening. I'm not sure I like all of these bounces though. I think I went a little bit overboard with them. Somebody threw a stone made of light and it skipped around the model. I'm just going to block this in and blend it with black. Do a pretty difficult wet blend because the two colors are very, very different from each other. Usually don't want all of this difference in value between colors that you are wet blending. We can extend the shadow here. can let the paint dry and then work up from here. Always let the paint dry. In the meantime, we can sort of delete these highlight here. And we can make the highlight of the tip better. One single thing. You can see how easily you can change your mind when you paint, right? Acrylics give you the power of changing stuff as you go. You should take it. One of the biggest reasons why people use acrylics when they paint is so that you can paint over. This is why acrylics are called the beginner's paint by professional artists or people who dwell in the arts. Acrylics are considered to be beginner's paint because you learn how to paint in acrylics and then you commit to other mediums, because acrylics allows you to fix your mistakes. Now, we don't use acrylics like beginners, we use acrylics like masters, but still, it's like painting through Photoshop, because you are a 2D artist and you use digital, and never using Ctrl-Z. There's no point. Don't be afraid of going over some of the things you paint because you feel that you could do a better job. That doesn't mean you should repaint everything you do. Learn when to stop, but if you have like an itch to change things and you really want to, don't be afraid of it. You can do it. Okay, we can now place a bit of a layer of this gray, and then on top of it, we'll blend our highlight. Yeah, I like it more this way. Okay, let it dry. In the meantime, we can work at the bottom of the plate here. Work in the highlight and then blend it in. Okay. Let's keep working on the top. Again, I'm gonna give you a full no cuts view of this paint. Okay, looking to gain coverage now. Okay. Okay, you can see that we are slowly but surely getting there, right? The blade is looking like metal already. We still haven't pushed the contrast all the way through. We're going to in a minute. All right. We can go to black now, make a very strong glaze of it, and use it to do a bit of a blend in this mid-tone area. Although I would probably like a bit more gray to show through. So I want to move through gray first. Like, as I was blocking in this highlight, I I end up losing the mid-tone, right? So I am getting it back now by glazing it in on top of the highlights. Just rescuing it. And then we can go with the black and get our strong shadow. Locked in there. We can strengthen one here as well. And it's a back and forth, you see. Like I went in the shadows, I rescued the mid-tone. Now I gotta blend the highlight in after rescuing the mid-tone. So I'm gonna do the same thing I did earlier. This time, being careful not to move the brush too much. So I don't extend the area of the highlight too much into the mid-tone. Like this. Okay. Feel like I'm happy with this. So far at least. So we can move up. Before we move up, I want to edge highlight the letters at the bottom. I don't know how well you'll be able to see this. You're probably gonna be you will see the contrast, but not much of the definition of the letters because they are in a bit of a weird position. You can see that we have some good contrast there. Now I'm gonna be adding white, the white ink, to my verdigris color. And actually, this specific verdigris is very, very, very thin. So I'm going to be using Chimera White instead. Chimera White is just as bright of the ink. It's just way thicker than an ink, which makes it good to counterbalance the washiness of this verdigris. Because if I have too thin paint, I'm gonna get myself a very difficult time edge highlighting. So basically, the verdigris is currently thinning the white. So with this color here, we can do our strong edge highlight on top and on the sides too. We can do the edge highlight on the letters. Okay. And we can also do the strong edge highlight over the length of the blade. Hmm. It's not very easy to do edge highlights. You have to freehand it. Oof. Gonna have to clean that up, but I can do that in a second moment. In the meantime, I can gently, gently, gently push the highlights here. As you know. And lastly, with pure white, we can pick out some of the spots on the leather, on the letters. We're going to have to define this letter now, because I did get my paint inside of it a little bit. So I'm going to thin a black quite a lot. and then just tapping the tip of the brush inside of the letters. Terminus. There we go. We got it. I think the blade looks pretty neat as it is. So we don't really have to do much work except, you know, fixing the edges that I painted here. I'm just going to set a very dark gray. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think we'll go with the blade. I'm liking how she looks. Alright, I'm gonna keep taking a look at the blade, paint the other side, and after the blade is done, we're gonna work on the gold. I'll see you in a bit. Right, with the same color, I also painted the chains and the thing on the leg, on the pelvis here, and I also did base coat with red, corn red, the inner parts of the jacket and the handle of the weapon, and that is it. We did the weapon, all is well. Let's move on to the gold now. So I'm gonna be using a bunch of colors to create a mid-tone. Sorry, a shadow tone, really. Mornfang Brown from GW will be the first one. Mornfang Brown is our starting color. To this Morphan Brown, I'm going to be adding a bit of Chimera Red. There we go. Wait. A bit of Chimera Red and a bit of red. And a bit of black, sorry. So, Chimera Red. Black. A bit more black. Okay, so this will be our base coat. So let's get started. I'm going to base coat all of the golds like this, and I will be back in a second. Next up, we have English Uniform from Vallejo Model Color added to our mix and used to highlight. So I'm going to be sketching in the highlights, and then I'm going to be blending them, and then we're going to be highlighting again. I'm just adding this color in, like so. I want to add a bit of Chimera Orange as well, just to retain vibrancy, because the more colors you add, especially model color, tend to have very little vibrancy. As I said at the beginning of the videos, I said I wasn't going to be using Chimera much at the start because of the fact that I didn't want to have too much saturation. Now I do. So I'm adding English uniform and Chimera orange to this previous mix, creating a very nice orange mid-tone. And we're going to be using this to highlight pretty much everywhere where the light would hit. Okay. We want to keep some of the base coat here and there because we need to push the contrast with it. Let me zoom out a bit so that I don't run the risk of going out of camera too much. I'm gonna just keep going like this to get the full coverage of all of this mid-tone color, keeping the base coat in the recesses as well as having it as a strong shadow color so we can build up into the gold without having to go too much back and forth with the colors. And wherever possible, I'm going to keep the highlights consistent with the ones I already have on the model for the non-metallic, but also for other details next to it, so that I get a nice, cohesion in the details in the lights. It's important to be consistent with your lighting, otherwise the model looks a bit all over the place. Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna keep going with the sketching and I will show you in a moment. Okay, I did the lighting, and now to this I'm gonna be adding a bit of orange ochre. Sorry, no, not orange ochre. I want to use Japanese uniform because it's a bit warmer than orange ochre. So Japanese uniform, we're gonna be using all of the uniforms. We used English, and now we're gonna be using Japanese. So we're just going to be adding it into our mix, getting it to be good, and then we can paint it in without going over the previous highlights, of course. Thinking a bit more where the light would hit. Okay, you can see that wherever this color goes, it's pushing the metallicness of the object. And also, when we started out, it looked a bit bronzish, but as we now add these more yellow color, we are getting a gold. The challenge now is to not overdo this, because if you do too much yellowness, it won't look gold anymore, it will look yellow, and it will look kind of shit. Unless you're going for a yellow non-metallic, but you very rarely see stuff that is yellow and metallic. Imperial Fest, taxis. Who takes taxis anymore anyway? So this color, more than an increase of value, is a change of tone. So we are gently highlighting, and it is a bit of a value increase, but it's mostly to change the tone of the orangish in some area, not all of them. We're not entirely covering the previous coat, guys. We're keeping it because we need that. But we are having that color transition into a more of a yellow without changing value, because we're going to be pushing the value very harshly with the next highlight to get that metallic glint effect. So since we can't push the value, because if we push the value too slowly, it's going to look not very metallic, we can push the colors instead. And I mean, this has a bit more value than the previous color, but not very much. That's what I'm saying. I'm painting this mostly for contrast, for color contrast, and believability to make this look like a gold and not like a bronze or a yellow or something else. Gold is my least favorite metallic to paint. Because it has this tendency of losing its goldness super easily unless you know what you're doing, and you have to focus a bit too much. Not too much, but you have to focus more than you would normally on a non-metallic. Like if you know how to paint non-metallic and you have that kind of instinct, any other non-metallic would be fairly easy to paint. Gold can be a pain in the ass even if you know what you're doing. Which is why so many painters have fixed recipes kind of that they have ingrained in their mind and they keep repeating over and over and over, right? You know, you see sometimes some paint jobs that are like, oh, that's a nice paint job, but I don't think the gold fits very well with the colors you have there. And the reason is because the painter, even amazing, painters have this issue of spamming the same kind of recipe because they are afraid of trying things out or don't really know what to do with other colors because they have learned gold one way and they just do it that way. So I try to show you different recipes every time. As you saw with the silver, I kind of picked up a random color from my paint rack because I felt like it was gonna be working, and it did. I think I like it. So with the gold, this recipe is a bit more tested. I have used it already on my Twitch stream. Um, but yeah, it's new. It's something I've tried out like 2 days ago, something like that. I also want to keep the colors fairly dark because I kept everything subdued on this model. So having a very cartoonishly bright gold and cartoonishly yellow gold on this scheme would be loud as heck. So we're keeping this gold fairly subdued in its goldness. A more realistic kind of gold. I'm also placing the color in a bit of a thinned way because I don't have too much space to blend on this model. On the gold elements, I mean, they're very small. So I'm trying to place it and blend it as I place it, so I don't have to worry about that. Okay. Okay, now comes the hard part, which is making the last highlight stick and look nice. I'm gonna be using cold yellow from Chimera. And to this yellow, I'm going to be adding our highlight color for the previous thing we did, which is the silver. Just a little bit of it to turn it into a more of a greenish color. And then white to highlight and push in vibrancy. Well, not really, not push the vibrancy, but push the brightness a bit more. Okay, and then with this color added to our previous mix, we can do our last highlight. See how it looks like, make decisions as we go. I do want to keep this highlight as small as I can. The more of the mid-tones I can show, the better. And this is where gold gets tricky. If you over highlight at this stage, it doesn't look like gold anymore. If you don't highlight enough, it doesn't look like a metal anymore. So that's an issue, right? That's where yellows become annoying. moving. Keeping the highlight small. Okay. You can see that. It's looking pretty good already. All we need to do is commit to this and make it work fully. Through blending, through maybe like little glints of stronger light, although I don't know. Right now it's looking pretty good. I don't want to ruin anything by adding more light. Gold never goes into white in its highlights. It goes to a very, very, very desaturated yellow towards white. But it never looks pure white. So since we are currently placing that very, very desaturated yellow, I'm not sure about adding any more light. Okay, I'm going to blend now, and in the blending, I'm going to favor always the midtone, which means I'm never gonna push the light. I'm never gonna I'm never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down. I'm never gonna give favor to this strong yellow I have, but I'm rather, if I have to make a choice, I'm going to kill the yellow in favor of the orangish color, because otherwise the armor will look too yellow. And yes, I'll see you in a moment after. And with this, we conclude our guide. I hope you enjoyed the painting of this blade and the gold. And next time we see each other, at least for this model, it will be the end of the paint job. We just have a few more things to paint, like parchment, the head, the shoulder pad, the hourglass, a couple more things, but nothing really big. Although the head is super important, so you don't want to miss that. And after the paint job of the head, we'll be able to understand if there's something we don't like or we like, and blends to fix, highlights to push, shadows to push. So far, though, I am very happy with how this model is looking, and I hope you are too. I will see you in the next guide. Have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for being part of the Patreon. Bye bye.